Most people spend their entire lives handing power to people who never earned it. Not money, not status, power. Every time you react to an insult, every time you explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, every time you fight a battle that never deserved your attention, you lose. And the person who triggered you wins. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The people who control the world rarely waste time defending themselves. They don't rush to respond, they don't argue, they don't chase validation. While everyone else is busy explaining, they're quietly positioning themselves above the noise. So let me ask you something. What if the strongest response isn't a response at all? What if the moment you stop reacting is the moment people lose their ability to control you? Because that's exactly what Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago. He discovered something most people never learn. Power isn't gained by proving yourself. Power is gained by becoming impossible to manipulate. And today, I'm going to show you 7 dark psychological strategies that can completely change the way people perceive you. You'll learn why silence can be more devastating than the perfect comeback, why ignoring someone can make them think about you far more than confronting them ever could, and why the people who seem the most untouchable aren't stronger, smarter, or luckier than everyone else. They've simply mastered the art of withholding their attention. The average person reacts automatically. Someone criticizes them, they defend themselves. Someone doubts them, they explain. Someone provokes them, they take the bait. But powerful people operate differently. They understand that attention is the most valuable currency they possess, and they refuse to spend it on people who don't deserve it. Every influential leader, every respected figure, every person who naturally commands attention shares one trait in common. They are selective. Selective with their words, selective with their presence, selective with who gets access to them. And that selectiveness creates something incredibly powerful. Mystery. Respect. Influence. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover how to make people obsess over your silence, how to stop feeding those who drain your energy, and how to build a presence so powerful that people notice when you're gone. This isn't about being cold. It isn't about becoming cruel. It's about reclaiming control. It's about becoming the kind of person who cannot be baited, manipulated, or emotionally controlled. The kind of person whose silence speaks louder than everyone else's words. If you're ready to stop giving away your power, type, "I control my power." And let's begin. Number 1, guard your attention like gold. Most men don't realize they're being robbed. Not of money, not of opportunities, not even of time. They're being robbed of attention. And the brutal part, they're handing it away willingly. Think about the last time someone disrespected you online. Maybe it was a comment, maybe it was a message, maybe it was a guy trying to challenge you in front of other people. What happened? You felt that surge, that heat in your chest, that urge to respond, that voice inside your head saying, "I need to put this guy in his place." And in that exact moment, he owned you. Not because he was stronger, not because he was smarter, but because he controlled where your mind went. Most men never see this game being played. They think power is about dominance, but Machiavelli understood something darker. Power begins with attention, because wherever your attention goes, your life follows. Read that again. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. The average man wakes up and immediately starts feeding everyone else. Notifications, messages, drama, arguments, people demanding explanations, people demanding reactions, people demanding access. And by noon, he's mentally exhausted without accomplishing a single thing that actually moved his life forward. Why? Because everyone got a piece of him. A piece here, a piece there, a little more somewhere else, until there's nothing left for himself. Here's a hard truth most men don't want to hear. Not everyone deserves access to you. In fact, most people don't. That toxic friend who only calls when his life is falling apart. The woman who disappears for days and suddenly comes back when she needs attention. The critic who watches everything you do but contributes nothing. And the guy secretly hoping you fail. All of them are competing for the same thing. Your focus, your energy, and your attention. And attention is the most expensive currency on earth, because once it's spent, you never get it back. The powerful understand this. That's why they don't react to everything. They don't answer every attack. They don't defend themselves against every accusation. And they don't feel obligated to explain their choices to people who haven't earned the right to understand them. They have a filter, a gate, and most people never get through it. This is where weak men and powerful men separate. Weak men believe every challenge deserves a response, but powerful men ask a different question. Is this even worthy of my attention? And most of the time, the answer is no. Imagine someone sends you a disrespectful message tonight. The old version of you spends the next hour crafting the perfect response, rewriting it, editing it, and thinking about it while lying in bed, still carrying that person in your head long after the conversation ended. Now imagine the opposite. You read it, you feel nothing, you delete it, and then you go back to building your future. One man became emotionally enslaved, the other remained free. That's the difference. Attention guarded becomes power, attention wasted becomes weakness. From this moment forward, stop treating your attention like it's unlimited. It's not. It's your most valuable asset. Protect it like a king protects his crown. Because the moment you stop giving everyone access to your mind is the moment you become truly dangerous. Number 2. Silence is your sharpest weapon. Most men have been programmed to fear silence. The moment someone attacks them, questions them, disrespects them, or challenges their reputation, they feel an overwhelming urge to respond, to explain, to defend, to prove, and to win. What they don't realize is that this impulse is exactly what makes them controllable. Think about it. Why does a man argue online with a stranger he'll never meet? Why does he spend an hour typing paragraphs to someone who already decided to hate him? Why does he lose sleep replaying conversations in his head? Because his ego has been hooked. And once someone can hook your emotions, they can pull you wherever they want. That's the game nobody talks about. Most people aren't trying to defeat you. They're trying to access you, your attention, your emotions, your focus, and your energy. The moment they get a reaction, they've already won something. Machiavelli understood a truth that most men spend their entire lives missing. The man who reacts is being controlled. The man who remains silent controls the frame. Let me give you an example. A man receives a disrespectful message. His first instinct is to fire back. He wants the perfect response, the devastating comeback, the final word. 3 hours later, he's still thinking about it. Meanwhile, the other person is living rent-free inside his head. Now look at another man. Same message, same disrespect, same situation. He reads it, smirks, and deletes it, then goes back to building his business, training his body, and improving his life. One man became emotionally occupied, the other remained sovereign. Most men think silence is passive. It's not. Silence is one of the most aggressive psychological moves that exists, because silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is torture. When you respond, people know where they stand. When you explain yourself, people know how to attack you. When you defend yourself, people discover your insecurities. But when you say nothing, now they're trapped inside their own mind. Did he see it? Did he ignore me? Did I go too far? Does he even care? Suddenly they're doing the thinking for both sides. And here's the darker truth. People are often more disturbed by indifference than by hostility. A man can handle being hated, at least hatred acknowledges his existence. What most people cannot handle is feeling irrelevant, invisible, dismissed. Forget the movies, forget the fantasy speeches. In real life, some of the most powerful victories happen in complete silence. No confrontation, no explanation, no announcement, just absence, just indifference. Just a man who refuses to descend into battles beneath him. But there's another reason silence is dangerous. Every word you speak reveals information, every explanation exposes your thinking, and every emotional reaction leaves fingerprints. Your enemies study those fingerprints. They learn what bothers you, what triggers you, what controls you. Silence gives them nothing. No weakness, no roadmap, no leverage. Nothing. And that's why powerful men speak differently. They don't speak because they're uncomfortable with silence. They speak because they have something worth saying. When they talk, people listen because their words are rare. Because they aren't constantly explaining themselves. Because their silence has already established their value. Remember this, the loudest man in the room is rarely the most powerful. The most powerful man is usually the one observing, calculating, and speaking only when it changes the outcome. Silence isn't surrender. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is control. Silence is discipline. Silence is power hidden in plain sight. Number 3. Withdraw strategically, not completely. This is where most men get it wrong. They hear advice about becoming unavailable, mysterious, detached, and they take it to the extreme. They disappear, they isolate themselves, they cut people off, they become ghosts, and then they call it power. It isn't. It's avoidance dressed up as strength. Real power is far more subtle. Real power is far more subtle. Real power is remaining visible while becoming impossible to possess. Think about that for a second. Most men are either fully available or completely absent. They answer every text, accept every invitation, show up whenever they're called, or they vanish entirely. Neither creates respect, neither creates value. Machiavelli understood something most men never learn. Presence creates influence. Scarcity creates value. The combination of both creates power. The man who is always available eventually becomes invisible. People get used to him, they expect him, they assume he'll always be there, and the moment something becomes guaranteed, people stop appreciating it. You've seen this happen, maybe it happened to you. You met a woman. At first, she couldn't wait to hear from you. Every message felt exciting. Every interaction had energy. Then you started giving her unlimited access. Instant replies, constant attention, unlimited availability. And slowly, without noticing it, the dynamic changed. The mystery died, the anticipation disappeared, the emotional tension evaporated. Not because you became worse, but because you became predictable, and predictable men are rarely desired. This isn't just about women. It's about human nature. The friend who always drops everything becomes the backup option. The employee who's always available gets taken for granted. The man who constantly seeks approval loses the very respect he's trying to earn, because people value what feels scarce. They chase what they fear losing, and they ignore what they assume will never leave. That's the uncomfortable truth. The world does not reward unlimited availability. It rewards perceived value. And value grows when access becomes selective. Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't about playing childish games. It's not about pretending to be busy. And it's not about manipulating people. It's about having a life so meaningful that constant availability becomes impossible. The powerful man doesn't disappear to create mystery. The mystery is a byproduct of his mission. He's building, creating, improving, expanding. His attention is invested somewhere larger than social validation. And people feel that. They sense it. They notice that he isn't waiting by his phone. They notice he doesn't rearrange his life for everyone else. They notice he has boundaries, and boundaries create respect. Here's something most people will never admit. Uncertainty creates obsession. When people can completely predict you, they stop thinking about you. But when your presence becomes selective, something strange happens. They start wondering, they start checking, they start noticing your absence. Not because you're manipulating them, but because humans naturally pay attention to what isn't fully available. The strongest man in the room isn't the loudest. He isn't the one demanding attention. He's the one who knows he doesn't need it. He enters when he chooses, leaves when he chooses, engages when he chooses, and never explains why. That's what makes him dangerous, not aggression, not dominance, freedom. The freedom to be present without becoming accessible, the freedom to care without becoming dependent, the freedom to walk away without feeling guilty. That's strategic withdrawal. You stay in the game, but the game no longer owns you. You remain visible, but never predictable, present, but never desperate, available, but never obtainable on demand. And that's when something powerful happens. People stop taking your presence for granted, because for the first time, they understand it isn't guaranteed. Number 4, the mind-breaking effect of being ignored. Let me tell you something most people never figure out. Being hated doesn't bother people nearly as much as being ignored. Hatred is still attention. An argument is still attention. A fight is still attention. But being ignored, that's something entirely different, because when you ignore someone, you force them into the one place they can never escape, their own mind. And that's where the real punishment begins. Think about the last time someone ignored you. Not because they were busy, not because they forgot, because they deliberately gave you nothing. No explanation, no reaction, no closure. Just silence. What happened? Be honest. You started creating stories. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they're talking to someone else. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe they never cared. Your brain immediately went to work trying to solve a mystery that had no answer. That's human nature. The mind hates unfinished business. It hates unanswered questions. It hates uncertainty. And that's exactly why ignoring someone is so powerful. You aren't attacking them, you're forcing them to attack themselves. Machiavelli observed this centuries ago. The men who reacted to every insult became prisoners of public opinion. The men who answered every accusation spent their lives defending themselves. But the men who remained silent, those men became impossible to control. Because the moment you stop reacting, you remove yourself from the game entirely, and people lose their minds when they can no longer influence you. Let's make this brutally practical. Imagine a man sends you a disrespectful message. He's angry, emotional, trying to provoke you, trying to pull you into his reality. Most men fail this test immediately. They start typing, deleting, rewriting, thinking of the perfect comeback. An hour later, they're still emotionally trapped inside a conversation that should have lasted 10 seconds. The other guy succeeded. He occupied your mind. Now imagine the opposite. You see the message, you laugh. You lock your phone. You go back to your life, the gym, the business, the mission, the goals. 5 minutes later, you've forgotten he exists. Meanwhile, he's checking his phone, waiting, wondering, obsessing, rereading what he sent, telling his friends about it, trying to understand why he couldn't get a reaction. Who actually has the power in that situation? The one who is thinking, or the one being thought about? That's the question nobody asks. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Most people don't want resolution. They want validation. That's why critics keep criticizing. That's why haters keep hating. That's why toxic people keep provoking. They're chasing proof that they matter, proof that they can affect you, proof that they can reach you. And every time you react, you hand them exactly what they wanted. Your attention becomes their reward, your emotions become their victory. But silence changes everything. Silence says, you don't have access to me. You don't get a seat at my table. You don't exist in my reality. And that message lands harder than any insult ever could, because at least an insult acknowledges someone's existence. Indifference erases it. And erasure is psychologically devastating. The strongest men understand this. They don't seek revenge. They don't chase the last word. They don't waste energy proving themselves. They simply remove access, quietly, completely, without explanation. Because they understand a secret most people never learn. The opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And indifference is one of the few weapons that grows stronger the less you use it. So let them wonder. Let them create theories. Let them replay conversations in their head at 3 in the morning. Let them search for answers you'll never give, while they're trapped inside a psychological maze of their own creation. You keep moving forward, as if they never existed. Number 5. Erase the unworthy completely. Here's a lesson most men learn far too late. Not everyone deserves a place in your life. And the moment you finally understand that, your entire reality changes. Because most men spend years trying to manage people they should have removed. They negotiate with disrespect. They tolerate betrayal. They make excuses for people who repeatedly prove they don't deserve access. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted, distracted, and stuck. The answer is simple. Their circle is contaminated. Machiavelli understood something brutal about power. Every person you allow into your life either strengthens your position or weakens it. There is no neutral. And if you want to become dangerous, disciplined, and impossible to manipulate, there are 3 categories of people you must learn to erase. The first are enemies, not competitors, not people who disagree with you. I'm talking about people who secretly celebrate your failures, people who smile when you're watching and sabotage you when you're not, the kind of people who can't build anything themselves, so they spend their lives trying to damage what others have built. Most men make a fatal mistake with these people. They try to expose them. They try to defend themselves. They try to win the argument. But every second spent fighting enemies is a second stolen from your mission. The truth is, your enemies don't deserve your attention. They deserve your absence. The most painful thing you can do to a person who hates you is continue winning without acknowledging they exist. Let them watch. Let them talk. Let them grow bitter while you grow stronger. Nothing destroys a jealous man faster than being forced to witness your success from a distance. The second group is even more common. Critics. These people never create, never build, never risk, never lead. They sit safely on the sidelines and throw stones at men who step into the arena. You've seen them, maybe online, maybe at work, maybe inside your own family. The strange thing about critics is that they need you far more than you need them. Their identity depends on your existence. Without someone to attack, they have nothing. That's why reacting to criticism is often a trap. The moment you defend yourself, you've accepted their invitation, you've entered their frame, you've given them relevance. But successful men don't spend their lives explaining themselves. They spend their lives producing results. And results silence critics far better than arguments ever will. Then we arrive at the most dangerous category of all. The energy parasites, the wolves disguised as friends. These people don't attack you openly. They're far more sophisticated than that. They drain you slowly, one conversation at a time, one crisis at a time, one favor at a time. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The friend whose life is always falling apart. The person who always needs advice but never follows it. The one who brings chaos into every room they enter. At first, you feel sympathy, then responsibility, then obligation. Until one day you realize something uncomfortable. You are carrying people who have no intention of carrying themselves. And while you're busy saving them, nobody is saving you. That's the trap. Energy parasites survive on guilt. They make boundaries feel selfish. They make distance feel cruel. They make self-respect feel like betrayal. But protecting your energy is not selfish. It's survival. Because a distracted man cannot build, a drained man cannot lead, and an exhausted man cannot become exceptional. So here's the rule. No announcements, no dramatic exits, no speeches, no explanations. Just removal. Quiet, permanent, complete. Because every minute spent feeding the unworthy is a minute stolen from the future you're trying to create. And powerful men understand something most people never will. Success is not only about who you keep, it's about who you remove. Number 6. Build the armor of indifference. Let me tell you something most men never want to admit. The reason people can manipulate you isn't because they're stronger than you. It's because they know where your buttons are, and every time they press one, you react exactly the way they expected. Think about that. The moment somebody can predict your emotional response, they have leverage over you. Not complete control, but enough. Enough to distract you, enough to provoke you, enough to pull you away from your mission. That's why emotional weakness is one of the most dangerous forms of weakness a man can have, not because it makes him fragile, because it makes him predictable. And predictable men are easy to control. Machiavelli saw powerful men destroy themselves this way. Not with swords, not with armies, with ego, with pride, with emotional reactions they couldn't control. One insult triggered their anger. One criticism triggered their insecurity. One challenge triggered their need to prove themselves. And before they realized it, they were dancing to somebody else's tune. Most men are living exactly like that today. A stranger leaves a comment online, their mood changes. Someone questions their success, their confidence shakes. A woman pulls away, they can't focus for 3 days. Someone disrespects them, and now they're replaying the situation in their head while trying to sleep. Look closely. That's not power. That's dependency. Your emotional state is being controlled by people who don't even care about you. And that's a terrifying place to live. The strongest men I've ever observed all shared one trait. Not confidence, not intelligence, not charisma, emotional self-possession. The ability to remain calm while everyone else is losing control. The ability to hear criticism without collapsing. The ability to experience disrespect without becoming consumed by it. The ability to stay focused when life tries to pull them in 100 different directions. That's what indifference really is. It's not becoming cold. It's not becoming emotionless. It's becoming selective. Selective about what deserves access to your emotions. Because here's the brutal truth. Most of the things that upset you today won't matter 6 months from now. Most arguments are meaningless. Most criticism comes from people you'd never trade places with. Most disrespect comes from people projecting their own frustrations onto you, yet men sacrifice enormous amounts of peace responding to temporary noise. Noise that contributes absolutely nothing to their future. So here's the question. What are your triggers? Is it being called weak? Being rejected? Being misunderstood? Being ignored? Being disrespected? Whatever instantly provokes an emotional reaction from you, that's where your armor is weakest. And whether people realize it consciously or not, they will keep attacking those weak points, again and again and again, until you strengthen them. The solution isn't avoiding those situations. The solution is becoming immune to them. A man calls you lazy. You know how hard you work. His opinion changes nothing. A woman misunderstands your intentions. Let her. People create stories about others every day. A stranger disrespects you. That tells you something about his character, not yours. Move forward. The moment you stop needing validation, explanation, approval, or understanding from everyone around you, something powerful happens. You become difficult to manipulate, then difficult to control, then almost impossible to break. People will test you. They always do. They'll push the buttons that used to work. They'll expect the old reaction, the old anger, the old insecurity, the old emotional explosion, and when nothing happens, when they realize they've lost access to your emotions, the entire power dynamic changes. Because the strongest man isn't the one who controls other people. The strongest man is the one who controls himself. Build that armor, strengthen it daily, and watch how quickly the world loses its power over you. Number 7. Ascend through calculated inaction. This is the lesson that separates powerful men from exhausted men, because most men spend their entire lives trapped in a cycle they never question. Someone challenges them, they react. Someone criticizes them, they defend themselves. Someone doubts them, they try to prove themselves. Someone competes with them. They start competing back. And before they realize it, they're living a life dictated by other people's actions, not their own. That's the trap. Most men think power comes from action. More effort, more responses, more fighting, more proving, more explaining. But Machiavelli understood something far darker. Sometimes the highest form of power is refusing to move at all. Not because you can't act, but because you choose not to. There's a difference. A weak man avoids confrontation because he's afraid. A powerful man ignores confrontation because he's unimpressed. And from the outside, those two things can look identical, but internally, they come from completely different worlds. Let me show you something most men never notice. The average man spends years fighting battles he was never supposed to enter. A rumor starts. He panics. He starts calling people, sending messages, explaining himself, trying to repair his image, trying to control what others think. Meanwhile, the rumor has already stolen what it came for: his attention, his focus, his peace. Now compare that to the man who understands calculated inaction. He hears the rumor, he does nothing. Not because he doesn't know, but because he understands something deeper People who matter will eventually see reality, and people who don't matter were never worth convincing. So while everyone else is discussing him, he keeps building, and eventually reality speaks louder than defense ever could. The same principle applies to competition. You've probably seen this before. Someone starts copying you, copying your style, your ideas, your content, your approach. At first, your ego wants to respond. Your ego wants recognition. Your ego wants everyone to know who did it first. But that's exactly where most men lose. Because the moment you become obsessed with the copycat, you've stopped focusing on creation. And creators always outrun imitators. While they're busy studying your last move, you're already making your next one. That's calculated inaction. You don't fight for position. You outgrow the battlefield entirely. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people secretly want access to your reactions. Not your friendship, not your respect, your reactions. Because reactions create influence. The moment somebody can make you angry, they have influence. The moment somebody can make you defend yourself, they have influence. The moment somebody can pull you into drama, they have influence. Calculated inaction removes that access, and when people lose access to your reactions, they lose access to your power. That's why the strongest men often appear mysterious. Not because they're playing games, but because they're busy. Busy building, busy improving, busy pursuing something larger than social approval. And while everyone else is fighting invisible wars for attention, they're quietly building real leverage, real status, real freedom, real power. The irony is almost cruel. The more desperately people chase influence, the less influence they have. The less they need attention, the more attention they attract. The less they try to prove themselves, the more people assume they have value. That's the paradox most men never understand. Power isn't always found in movement. Sometimes it's found in restraint. Sometimes it's found in patience. Sometimes it's found in doing absolutely nothing while everyone else destroys themselves. Calculated inaction isn't laziness. It's discipline. It's strategic self-control. The ability to recognize which battles create results and which battles only create noise. And once you master that skill, something changes. You stop reacting, you stop chasing, you stop proving, and you begin ascending. Not because you fought harder than everyone else, but because you refuse to waste your life fighting battles beneath you. If you've made it this far, then you've probably started noticing something uncomfortable. Most of the battles you've been fighting were never really battles at all. They were distractions, carefully disguised distractions. Someone wanted your attention, someone wanted your reaction, someone wanted your emotional investment, and without realizing it, you gave it to them for years. Think about how much energy you've wasted trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you, trying to earn respect from people who secretly wanted to see you fail, trying to prove your worth to people whose opinions should never have mattered in the first place. How many hours? How many sleepless nights? How many conversations replayed in your head long after they ended? How much of your life was spent fighting for validation you never actually needed? That's the uncomfortable question. Because most men aren't exhausted from hard work, they're exhausted from emotional leakage. A little attention here, a little validation there, a little reaction somewhere else, until one day they wake up and realize they've spent years feeding other people's importance while starving their own purpose. That's why these principles matter, not because they're tricks, not because they're tactics, because they're filters. Filters that separate what deserves your energy from what deserves absolutely nothing. Today you've seen the mind-breaking effect of being ignored. You've seen how silence can create more pressure than confrontation, how people often become obsessed with what they can no longer reach. You've learned to identify the people who quietly poison your life, the enemies who smile while hoping you fail, the critics who contribute nothing but negativity, and the energy parasites who drain your strength while calling it friendship. You've learned to build emotional armor, to stop handing strangers the keys to your emotional state, to stop allowing other people's opinions to dictate your mood, your focus, and your direction. And most importantly, you've learned the final lesson: calculated inaction. And bake times for Janes. You grew leng with twill, inaction. YouTube turns the attack. Little dryo, their medium to go. The ability to sit still while weaker men panic. The ability to remain calm while others desperately chase validation. The ability to recognize that not every challenge deserves a response, and not every invitation deserves acceptance. Because power isn't found in reacting, power is found in choosing. Choosing what deserves your attention, choosing what deserves your energy, choosing who gets access to you. The truth is, most people will never understand this. They'll keep explaining, keep arguing, keep proving, keep chasing, keep reacting, and because of that, they'll remain trapped in a game they don't even realize they're playing. But you don't have to. From this moment forward, every time someone tries to provoke you, remember this video. Every time someone demands an explanation they haven't earned, remember this video. Every time you feel that urge to defend yourself, justify yourself, or prove yourself, pause and ask one question. Does this deserve my power? Most of the time, the answer will be no, and that single decision will change the trajectory of your life more than any argument ever could. Because the strongest man is not the man who wins every fight. The strongest man is the one who no longer needs to fight battles beneath him. That's the art Machiavelli understood. That's the advantage hidden in plain sight. And now it belongs to you. So I'll leave you with one final challenge. If you're done giving away your attention, if you're done seeking validation, if you're done allowing other people to control your emotional state, then make the decision right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Drop these words in the comments. I am untouchable. Not because nobody can reach you, because nobody controls you. And if this video exposed a truth most people never see, subscribe, because this is only the beginning. The world is full of men fighting for attention. Become the man who no longer needs it.